He never lost a duel. 60 fights, 0 defeats, and his secret weapon wasn't his sword. Miyamoto Musashi, Japan's greatest swordsman, a man who could kill you faster than you could blink. But what made him unbeatable wasn't technique, wasn't speed, wasn't even skill with a blade. It was that he defeated himself first. Before every fight, before every challenge, before every moment that mattered, he won the internal battle. And once you win that battle, the external ones become easy, because most people lose to themselves, not to their opponents, to their own fear, their own doubt, their own ego. And if you can't defeat those enemies inside you, you'll never defeat the enemies outside you. So let's go back. About 400 years ago, feudal Japan, samurai everywhere, warriors training their entire lives, perfecting their skills. And then there's Musashi, an orphan. No formal training, no prestigious school. Just him figuring things out through actual life-or-death combat. He fights his first duel at 13, kills a grown man, an experienced warrior, and from that moment on, he's studying something nobody else is studying. Not just how to fight others, but how to fight himself. Because he notices something in every duel. Before the swords even clash, the fight is already decided. Not by skill, by mind. The person who's calm wins. The person who's controlled wins. The person who's mastered themselves wins. Every time, he watches opponents who are more skilled than him, better trained, more experienced, but they're slaves to their emotions, to their anger when insulted, to their fear when threatened, to their ego when challenged, and that slavery gets them killed. Because when you're fighting yourself, you can't fight your opponent. When you're battling your own fear, you're not present. When you're defending your ego, you're not seeing clearly. When you're controlled by anger, you're predictable. And predictable gets you dead. So Musashi starts training differently than everyone else. Not just his body, his mind. Not just his technique, his character. Not just his sword skills. His self-mastery, because he realizes that's where battles are actually won or lost. Inside, before they ever become outside, he develops practices, daily, to defeat the enemies within. The fear that makes you hesitate, the anger that makes you reckless, the ego that makes you blind, the doubt that makes you weak. These are the real enemies, and if you don't defeat them, they defeat you. He practices emptying his mind, completely. No thoughts of winning, no fear of losing. No concern about reputation, no attachment to outcomes. Just pure presence, pure awareness, pure action, without the noise of self getting in the way. And this is what makes him unstoppable. Not because he's the best fighter, but because he's not fighting himself. Everyone else is battling their own minds while trying to battle him. He's just there, completely. No internal conflict, no mental noise, just clarity and action. He wins 60 duels, never loses, not one time. And after years of this, after proving he's the best, he writes it all down. Not for fame, for students, for anyone willing to learn. And the first lesson is always the same. Defeat yourself first, he said. There is nothing outside of yourself that can ever enable you to get better, stronger, richer, quicker, or smarter. Everything is within. Everything exists. Seek nothing outside of yourself. What does that mean? It means your real obstacles are internal. Your real enemies are internal. Your real battles are internal. And until you win those battles, nothing external matters. You could have the best technique and still lose. The best resources and still fail. The best opportunities and still waste them. Because if you haven't defeated your fear, it controls you. If you haven't defeated your ego, it blinds you. If you haven't defeated your doubt, it paralyzes you. These internal enemies are more dangerous than any external opponent, and they're with you always, in every fight, every challenge, every moment that matters. Now, let's make this real, because you're fighting yourself right now, not with swords, but with the same enemies Musashi faced: fear, ego, doubt, anger, and these enemies are winning. They're stopping you from doing what you know you should do, from becoming who you know you should be. Think about the things you want to do but don't, the risks you want to take but won't, the moves you want to make but can't. Why? Not because external obstacles are stopping you, because internal ones are. Fear is stopping you. Doubt is stopping you. You're defeating yourself before you even try. Musashi would say that's the first battle. That's the one you have to win, not out there with circumstances or people or challenges. In here with your own mind, your own emotions, your own self-imposed limitations. Someone wants to start a business but doesn't. Not because they can't, because they're afraid. Afraid of failure, afraid of judgment, afraid of looking stupid. That fear is the enemy, not the market, not the competition. The fear. And until you defeat that fear, you'll never start. You'll defeat yourself before anyone else gets the chance. Or someone wants to have a difficult conversation but won't. Not because they don't know what to say. Because they're afraid of conflict. Afraid of rejection. Afraid of making things worse. That fear controls them. Makes them silent when they should speak. Makes them weak when they should be strong. They defeat themselves. Here's another one. Someone wants to compete, to test themselves, to go for something big, but their ego won't let them. Because what if they lose? What if they fail publicly? What if everyone sees they're not as good as they pretend to be? So they don't try. They protect their ego instead of challenging themselves. They defeat themselves to protect an image. This is what Musashi saw everywhere. People with skill who never used it. People with courage who never showed it. People with potential who never realized it. Not because they couldn't, but because they wouldn't defeat themselves first, wouldn't face their internal enemies. Wouldn't win the battle that actually matters. He also teaches about anger. How it makes you stupid. How it makes you reactive. How it makes you controllable. When you're angry, your opponent owns you. They can make you do whatever they want just by pushing the right buttons. And that control gets you killed. So Musashi practices staying calm, not suppressing emotion, but not being controlled by it either. Feeling anger without acting from anger. Feeling fear without being paralyzed by fear. Feeling ego without being blinded by ego. That's self-mastery. That's what defeating yourself actually means. And in your life, think about how often anger controls you. Makes you say things you regret. Makes you do things that hurt you. Makes you react instead of respond. Makes you stupid when you need to be smart. That's not your opponent winning. That's you defeating yourself. Or think about how ego controls you. Makes you defensive when you should listen. Makes you arrogant when you should learn. Makes you protect your image when you should grow. Makes you small while trying to look big. That's self-defeat. That's losing to yourself. Musashi spent his entire life mastering this. Not once, but daily. Because the enemies within don't go away. You don't defeat fear permanently. You defeat it today. And tomorrow you defeat it again. And the next day. And the next. That's the practice. That's the discipline. He writes that the way of strategy, the way of the sword, the way of life, it's all the same. Master yourself. Control your mind. Defeat your internal enemies. And external success becomes inevitable. Not guaranteed, but far more likely. Because you're not fighting yourself anymore. You're just fighting the actual challenge, and that's much easier. Most people never understand this. They think their problems are external. Bad luck, bad circumstances, bad people, bad timing, and they spend their lives trying to fix external things, while internal enemies destroy them from within. They defeat themselves daily and blame the world. But Musashi shows you different. He shows you that the battlefield is internal, that the most dangerous opponent you'll ever face is yourself, and that once you learn to defeat that opponent, once you master yourself, everything else becomes manageable. This is practical, not philosophical. When you're about to do something hard, something scary, something that matters, what stops you? Not the thing itself. Your fear of the thing. Your doubt about yourself. Your ego protecting itself. These internal forces, these are what you have to defeat first. So you practice, like Musashi did. You notice the fear. You don't let it control you. You notice the doubt. You don't let it stop you. You notice the ego. You don't let it blind you. You defeat these enemies. Right here, right now, before you engage with anything external. And when you do this, when you win the internal battle first, the external battle becomes clearer, simpler. You're not fighting two wars anymore. Just one. And that one becomes winnable because you're not defeating yourself. Musashi fought 60 duels, but he fought thousands of internal battles daily. Every morning, every moment before engaging. Every time fear or ego or doubt tried to control him, he defeated himself first, made himself empty, made himself clear, made himself free from internal enemies. And that's what made him unbeatable. Not superior technique, superior mastery. And that's available to you. Not through 60 duels. Through daily practice. Through defeating your internal enemies before they defeat you. Through winning the battle that actually determines all the others. The question is whether you'll fight it. Whether you'll face your fear instead of being controlled by it. Whether you'll challenge your ego instead of protecting it. Whether you'll question your doubt instead of believing it. Whether you'll defeat yourself first. Because Musashi proved it's possible. Proved that self-mastery is the ultimate skill. Proved that once you win internally, external victories follow. Not easily, but consistently. Because you're not your own worst enemy anymore. You're your own greatest ally. And that changes everything. Subscribe for more warrior wisdom that teaches you to win the battles that actually matter.